That which has been is what will be. That which is done is what will be done. And there is nothing new under the sun. Is there anything of which it may be said, "See, this is new"? It has already been in ancient times before us. Ecclesiastes 1, 9 through 10. What if? What if? There really isn't anything new under the sun. I had a dream a few years ago that I placed on the shelf, meaning I haven't shared it with many other people because I was unsure if it was really from the Lord or just my wild imagination. And then when I saw a certain picture recently, I was blown away as it reminded me of the dream. This is what I dreamt. I was standing in a meadow. I looked up and saw several of a strange kind of aircraft hovering just above the trees. They were similar size of that of a blimp and traveling at a slow speed of that of a blimp, maybe about 80 kilometers or 50 miles per hour. But the shape was more similar to that of a battleship, and its color was that of black iron. This picture is similar to what I saw. I will refer to them from this point as the flying dreadnoughts. I saw no jet engines. They weren't very loud. I didn't know what kind of technology they were using. I looked for propellers but found none. Usually, if a dream is purely from your imagination, whatever you expect you will find. For example, in one dream I was golfing and imagined a snake in my shoe, and then, seconds later, ouch! I took off my shoe and, just as expected, a snake came slithering out. Not so with this dream. There were multiple things in it that surprised me. It was like I expected a snake, but an elephant came out instead. There was a great battle that unfolded before my eyes. These flying dreadnoughts were armed with high-powered lasers. It felt like I was in a Terminator movie. Very intense. But no music, no fancy stuff, just the roaring of fires and explosions. When they shot the lasers, I expected to hear the typical sounds that you'd hear in sci-fi movies like Star Wars, but these made no such sound. In fact, they made no sound at all. And it wasn't short beams, but continuous beams that swept back and forth for a couple of seconds at the most. They were burning everything. Trees, grass, it didn't matter. The beautiful meadow I once saw quickly turned into a fiery hell. I was lifted up in the air by unseen force. I looked beyond to where the flying dreadnoughts were heading. I saw a city, but it did not look futuristic. The wall around the city was not made of concrete, but hewn stone. I did not see tall skyscrapers, but buildings made of stone. It was ancient-looking architecture. I looked back over to the approaching flying dreadnoughts. I got super close to one. I noticed that the soldiers were wearing, again, not what I'd expect. I would have expected American Marines or soldiers in some body armor like the Halo video games. It seemed like I was invisible. Nobody noticed me. The soldiers on the flying dreadnought stared straight ahead. They were wearing turbans and linen tunics. Then it dawned on me that I wasn't seeing the future, but a possible past. That this was the generation of Noah, and that this was the what if. What if God never intervened and flooded the earth? We would have completely destroyed ourselves. I shared this dream with a couple of people other than my wife, and they just shrugged it off as it was just a dream. And maybe it was. So I thought. I put it on the shelf until I received some kind of confirmation. Since then, many years have passed. Even if the dream was about an antediluvian battle, I downplayed it. I didn't think that they would have had the threat of nuclear war as we do today. I remember telling my wife that the technology I saw in my dream was impressive, but we have the atom bomb now. And then I came across this picture when I was searching for pictures for the lyrics video of The Loving Wrath of God. It was completely shocking. What you see is a Babylonian cylinder seal from about 600 BC, clearly showing a nuclear bomb and explosion. The size pictured is about half the size of the little boy dropped on Hiroshima on August 6, 1945. Perhaps, if the Babylonian Empire never fell to the Medes and Persians, that they would have further developed these weapons of mass destruction. History would have played out quite differently, and maybe God has stopped not just one, but multiple nuclear holocausts in the past. Indeed, other archaeological evidence of ancient nuclear warfare is claimed to have been found in India, but I have yet to find a reputable source. Conspiracy theorists on the web think that there has been a cover-up, but I don't know. And the quotes used from the Bhagavad Gita are a stretch. Even if there is some truth in it, I'm not going to repeat quotes from a book inspired by demons in my teachings. So, if you Google search this, I'd advise that you take what you read with a grain of salt. Same with the legend of Atlantis. There may be some truth in it, but there are myths and lies mixed within it. But at the same time, I'm not going to throw the idea out completely because of the misinformation. Numerous underwater cities and man-made structures have been discovered. Here you see a bull similar to the golden calf that the Israelites made in the book of Exodus. Did this just appear by random chance? Did the intricate pattern of this floor on the bottom of the ocean just a product of nature? This is undeniable proof that the sea level was much lower than it is today, or that some land that was much higher literally sunk lower into the sea. Jesus said, "As in the days of Noah, so shall the coming of the Son of Man be." And what I have discovered is that means much more than just apathy about the coming sudden destruction. It may not have been much different than the world we live in today. The more I research, the more interesting this gets. Consider this. Since the late 1600s, the world population has exploded, going from less than 500 million to the current 7.9 billion, an increase of over 15-fold due to medical advancements and agricultural productivity. Imagine how fast the world population could grow and how fast technology could have advanced and how much evil could have been invented if many people were living over 900 years. The population of the pre-flood world could have reasonably been between 5 to 17 billion people by the time Noah entered the ark. So, how would this play out in the modern world? I previously thought that a fleet of aircraft this large would easily be detected by radar. They'd be seen coming 100 miles away. But what I discovered in my research is that standard radar cannot detect low-flying aircraft because of interference from clutter. Black objects are also harder to detect, hence why stealth aircraft are always black. Perhaps that was the reason why the airships were flying so low and were black in color. I thought that they were made of black iron, but iron I think would be too heavy for an aircraft, and especially an aircraft of that size. The black shell may also have been designed to absorb lasers similar to the black laser absorbing carbide material we use today, up to 4,000 degrees Celsius or 7,232 degrees Fahrenheit. Thus, using laser weapons against it would be highly ineffective. I did not see a single one blow up due to a laser used against it. In fact, I don't recall any of them blowing up. They seemed invincible. Nobody could stop them. I want to say that artillery was being used instead of lasers against them, but it has been so long since I've had the dream. All I remember is that whatever they had wasn't enough firepower to take a single ship down. And it was a delayed reaction, meaning that it was a surprise attack. I didn't think about all the technicalities and science of what I was seeing. I was just observing. It was only recently that I started to do some deep digging. If one thing was off, I wouldn't have taken it seriously. But I keep getting surprised by what I find and many of my questions being answered. But unfortunately, some questions may never be answered until our Lord comes back. The biggest problem is that Noah's flood was so catastrophic that hardly anything from the antediluvian civilizations still exists. And perhaps some things are better left buried. There are a few things about the antediluvian civilizations that we can learn from the biblical text. There were giants on the earth in those days, and also afterward. When the sons of God came into the daughters of men, and they bore children to them, those were the mighty men who were of old, men of renown. Then the Lord saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every intent of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. And the Lord was sorry that he had made man on the earth, and was grieved in his heart. Genesis 6:4-6. We learn three things from this passage. 1. Women were having sexual relations with demons, which produced giants. 2. As man multiplied, wickedness also multiplied. 3. That it got to the point where if God did not intervene, there would be no remnant. The human race would have ceased to exist. We learn a fourth clue in Genesis 8:20. I will never again curse the ground for man's sake, although the imagination of man's heart is evil from his youth. 4. The ground was cursed. We learn a fifth clue in Genesis 9:6. Whoever sheds man's blood, by man his blood shall be shed, for in the image of God he made man. 5. Murder was commonly going unpunished and even celebrated. This was definitely true of Lamech, who boasted to his wives, I have killed a man for wounding me, even a young man for hurting me. If Cain shall be avenged sevenfold, then Lamech 77-fold. Genesis 4:23 and 24. So, if we are truly living in the days of Noah, we will see these things. Do we see women having sexual relations with demons? Yep. Oh, and in case you didn't know, these so-called aliens are fallen angels. Of course, they won't admit that and want you to believe that they come in peace. Do we see the multiplication of wickedness? Yep. Corrupting the image by genetic manipulation? Yep. All of humanity in danger and being wiped out very quickly? Yep. Murder out in the open, going unpunished and even celebrated? Yep. And murder of the most innocent? Abortion. The only real difference is that God hasn't cursed the ground. We have. We have with all these chemicals that we have put on the land, not to mention industrial and nuclear waste. For example, here in the United States, we had to genetically modify the corn so that the weed killer used in the cornfields won't kill the corn. And every time we eat high fructose corn syrup, also known as pancake syrup, which is in a lot of food nowadays, we are eating traces of weed killer. And no wonder, after eating this garbage for years, that people are getting sick and dying. But it flies under the radar because of bribes, and the impact on our health isn't realized until years later. New technologies are really just old technologies that are being rediscovered and being refined. Really, the only thing that I can think of that would be entirely new is the internet. But then again, is it really? Because when people's brains are being hooked up to the internet, it will be a repeat of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. We are now coming full circle. Like the new and improved label on the breakfast cereal, which really means they've just tweaked the flavor. The reality is that truly, there is nothing new under the sun.